Hey there, welcome back to another review. This time around, it is my review of the 1983 classic comedy National Lampoon's Vacation. I don't like this cover art. I honestly hate it. I love this film, but I hate this cover art. It's lazy, it's Photoshop bullshit, and I don't know why they didn't just have the original poster, which is iconic and amazing and looks like a Frank Frazetta painting for a Conan movie. I don't know why the hell they didn't just reuse that poster for the 30th anniversary release. But that's that's just a little bit of venting. Uh, and before I get around to sharing more of my thoughts on the film, I want to give a special shout out to Brian for requesting this review. And if there's another film, TV show, or topic that you would like to see me discuss in the future, feel free to donate to my PayPal. The link will be in the video description down below, and I'll try to get to it as soon as I possibly can. Now, National Lampoon's Vacation is one of my favorite comedies. It's a film I grew up watching alongside Ghostbusters and Ghostbusters 2 and other comedies from the 80s. It's a film that I watched countless times on VHS. Anytime it was on TV, I would watch it. So, it's a film that I definitely do have a lot of nostalgia for, but the nostalgia is not really the only thing that is leading to this film being a classic comedy that leads to this movie still holding up after all these years. It's a genuinely great comedy. It's got a really good script that really feels like it's born out of real life experiences on a road trip with the family that has gone to hell. And that's because that is the case. The film is based on a story that John Hughes wrote that is based on his real recollections of a road trip from hell with his family to Disneyland. And that personal experience that Hughes brings to this script is so vital because it makes the film feel so genuine and really makes it more relatable to people. Because, I mean, who can not relate with this movie when it comes to the experience of being packed in a car with your family on a road trip and it's hot and you're crammed in with your family members like you're in a sardine can and the tempers are flaring and you know something happens and now you got to go on a detour or something goes awry. I mean, it's one of those things that's relatively universal for a lot of families when it comes to going on a road trip. And Vacation really does a great job capturing that and then some, as well as the family dynamic. Its positives as well as its negatives. It just makes it come across all the more real and raw in some aspects because of the fact that it doesn't really shy away from the ugly nature of family vacations. And the film is directed by Harold Ramis, the late great Harold Ramis, who prior to this he directed another classic comedy in Caddyshack. So he'd already sharpened his directing skills, his comedy chops with Caddyshack prior to this film. So now he was just ready and rearing to go and just at the peak of his game here with Vacation. The way that he handled the zany nature of the film was really impressive because it's a movie that easily could have come across as way too cartoonish to the point where it would no longer really be that funny because it wouldn't be as relatable because you wouldn't be able to see yourself in the shoes of these characters. And he found the right zany tone for the film, where you'd have moments of zaniness, but then you would also have moments that felt very real and felt very personal. And Ramis just worked with his cast in a way that was just brilliant, got the most out of everybody in the cast, whether it was Chevy Chase or Beverly D'Angelo or any of the actors who played the kids like Anthony Michael Hall or Dana Barron or even some of the supporting characters, like John Candy as the security guard, and so on. And Harold Ramis's connection with SCTV definitely did come into play here when it comes to a lot of the casting. I mean, you got Eugene Levy in the beginning as the shady car salesman, and you got a few other SCTV sort of regulars, like John Candy, who came in and had his cameo at the end of the movie. Um, but yeah, just a really well directed film in terms of just the pacing, how one scene flows to the next, the use of certain camera angles and establishing shots to really keep the movie trucking along. Great sense of timing when it comes to the direction to really make certain gags and certain moments really feel punctuated and even funnier. And yeah, Harold Ramis he was a really talented and great comedic director in his prime, and National Lampoon's Vacation is one of his best directorial efforts. Uh, the script by John Hughes, I also feel, is one of his best because of the fact that it's so personal. He's adapting this story that is based on what actually happened to him and his family. And you can really feel that when it comes to this story and how these characters are written and how everything unfolds. Yes, there are some moments in this script that I would say nowadays are considered to be problematic. The scene in the inner city, for instance. But the fact that the film has a rather consistent tone that is very tongue in cheek and sometimes very over the top, it makes it so that scene doesn't really feel like it's too mean spirited to me. So it doesn't really affect the journey that much. And there's just so many other things in this script that are just so well done that it more than makes up for moments like that. Just from the very beginning, where Chevy Chase's character, Clark Griswold, he's going to pick up the rental car for the vacation, and the the salesman is talking about how he lost the car, and here's another alternative, the family truckster. And I just love the way that Clark is written from the start of the film. He's a lovable goofball. Like, he's a guy who is a total doofus at times. He's completely naive, and he thinks he knows better, but in reality he doesn't. He's getting the wool pulled over his eyes by this shady car salesman, and he's trying to tell the car salesman off like, "Hey, I don't know what you think you're doing here, but you're not going to trick me." And all the while he's getting completely bamboozled. And that is just one of the core tenets of Clark Griswold as a character. I just love the way that John Hughes writes Clark. He's completely oblivious at times, and he's also equally as stubborn. And there's a lot of aspects of his character that, in the wrong hands, could lead to a character that is just incredibly, insufferably annoying and obnoxious. But he found a way to provide this character with a certain charm, despite how clueless he is. And the rest of the cast is also really well written, and they feel very fleshed out and feel like real people. Um, Ellen Griswold, you can tell that she loves Sparky, she loves Clark, and she wants what's best for him and the family on this vacation. But she's got a lot of questions, and she's, you know, she's one of those wives that loves their husband dearly, but there are definitely a lot of things about her husband that you can tell that she is not as fond of, and she just deals with it because she loves him so much. And I just like how Hughes writes the dynamic between the two. It shows it warts and all. And I like the dynamic between the parents and the kids. Rusty and um, Audrey. I like the way that that dynamic is. It felt very genuine too. The brother and the sister are fighting, and they don't always get along, and they have their own quirks and their own eccentricities and their own little issues and problems and so on. And I just like how all of it just comes together. And I even like the other random characters that show up, like Cousin Eddie and his family, and just how offbeat and just how completely off the wall his family is. It's the total antithesis of the Griswolds. And I like the girl in the Ferrari and how that girl just keeps showing up throughout the vacation, and then it leads to that scene at the hotel in the pool. And the only new character that I'm not that fond of when it comes to this script is Aunt Edna. Because prior to that, I mean, I like the girl in the Ferrari. I like the entire family. I like the fact that the trip, it starts off okay, but then it just gets progressively worse and just more madcap and more crazy. And I love the finale at Wally World, and I really like the even the scenes with Brian Doyle Murray's character as a guy who's running this campground. And there's just a lot of things about the script that I just adore, and a lot of characters, and a lot of little cameos that I really like. But I don't like Aunt Edna. I don't like this character. I feel like this character is a hanger on that doesn't really need to be there. And it does lead to one genuinely crowd pleasing moment where Ellen tells her to shut up, but that's like the one scene that almost makes Aunt Edna worth it. But other than that, like, I'm just not really that big into this Aunt Edna character. This Aunt Edna character, it really does just feel like she's tacked on. She's really annoying and just not really a character that I like watching. And I appreciate the fact that the script goes dark with Aunt Edna, which is definitely unexpected when she dies, and they put her on top of the roof and leave her at her son's house. But it's one of those things where, yeah, it's, kind of funny, but, maybe I might have found it funnier if I genuinely loved to hate Aunt Edna as a character. Uh, but most of the time I was very indifferent about Aunt Edna, or I just didn't want to see her bring everyone else down. Um, and there are other effective moments of dark comedy prior to that that definitely are tied into Aunt Edna, because the dog is Edna's dog, and so you have that whole scene with the leash on the back of the car and the police officer coming over and being completely appalled at Clark. Um, but I mean, you could have done that where it could have been the family dog or something. Like, you don't have to, or there's some stray dog that they decide to pick up off on the side of the road, that kind of thing. Like, there's something you could have done, something like that with a dog that's just insufferable and biting everybody, in without even having Aunt Edna there. Um, but a lot of the film is definitely, it's a build up to Wally World. It's a build up to the trip to Wally World, and I love the rug being pulled out from underneath everyone at that moment, where it's like, nope, sorry, we're closed, and then just leads to Clark snapping even more. And I like the moments that even uh, prelude that, where he's hit his breaking point. The Aunt Edna's dead. Everyone's just depressed, and this whole trip has gone to hell. The family truckster went over a huge. Actually, what happened is they went down the wrong way on the road, and then the truckster goes flying and they get stuck in a desert, and they somehow get out of that. And then Edna dies, and then they have to take a detour and drop her dead body off. And then they're just like, they're spent. They're like, we don't want to do this anymore. We want to go home. And I just love that there's that moment of just pure insanity from Clark, where he just snaps and just yells at everybody. And with the wrong script, with the wrong writer, that could come across as too much. It could come across as mean or mean spirited. But here it just comes across as hilarious because of the way that it's written. And that carries over to Wally World, where you have that moment where they're running in slow motion to Chariots of Fire, and they're happy. They went through hell and they're there, and now it's closed. And Clark just can't take that, so he gets a BB gun from a hardware store and takes the security guard hostage, and they go on the rides while holding this poor security guard at gunpoint with a BB gun. And I love the ending. I love it. I know initially this wasn't the original ending for the story. It was different. It involved Clark making the security guards do a song and dance or something along those lines. Or when Roy Wally comes in, he has them do the Moose song, and then the girl in the Ferrari shows up and then vouches for Clark, and that makes it so charges aren't filed. And then it ends for some reason with Clark holding the plane hostage. When they're flying home, because I guess Clark, there's something that he wants to do or whatever. He wants the family to still be able to have a good vacation or whatever. I don't remember exactly what the reason was for him taking the plane hostage, but it's just a bad ending. It's a bummer of an ending. It doesn't fit the tone of the movie. I can see why test audiences were befuddled and were not fans of it. And that's why you have the John Candy scenes, is because they reshot the ending. They brought in John Candy, paid him $1 million, $1 million well spent, if you ask me. And they had him play the security guard, the hapless security guard who gets held hostage, and they go on all the rides. And that's what it was building up to. And it would have felt like such a letdown if it didn't end with them at least being able to enjoy their time at Wally World, even if it means holding poor John Candy at gunpoint in order to do it. And I know the cast had a horrible time shooting this film. When it comes to a lot of the scenes, Ramis didn't really allow that to show, though, because they still seemed to appear as if they were having a fun time, that the cast was getting along despite dealing with a heat stroke and despite dealing with motion sickness and just feeling like crap after going on all these roller coasters and all of this stuff over and over again for multiple takes for the film's finale. But yeah, I love the way the film ends. I even love the end credits with the family photos, the Polaroids with the Lindsey Buckingham song in the background dancing across the USA. So yeah, just a really great script by John Hughes. And just it's just the perfect vacation movie. It just shows the highs and the lows of the family vacation. And the cast is just amazing. Phenomenal cast. I mean, Chevy Chase as Clark Griswold. It's the role he was born to play. He's a master at physical comedy. I mean, he showed that in SNL in his one season there. He's just so good at pratfalls, so good at just physically being funny. And on top of that, he's got one of the best deadpans in the business. And he's also so good at playing manic, high energy characters. who just snap and just lose it and make it so it's something that's not scary, but it's hilarious and it's laugh out loud funny. And I just felt it was just a perfect kind of role for Chevy Chase with the way that he acts, with his penchant for physical comedy, his penchant for deadpan. It was just a perfect role for him, and he just absolutely nailed it and created a very iconic film character as Clark. Beverly D'Angelo was also lovely and just great as Ellen. She had fantastic, just amazing chemistry with Chevy Chase. You really bought that they were a couple, and she had her own moments of uh, comedy as well that she really excelled at. I honestly feel that Beverly D'Angelo is a bit underrated when it comes to her ability to make you laugh. Um, Anthony Michael Hall, he was a lot of fun as Rusty, the older son of the Griswolds, and one of his first breakout film roles. And you could tell that this was an actor to keep an eye on because he definitely had a certain screen presence. Dana Barron, I also really liked her as Audrey, the daughter. I thought she had a certain spunk to her, a certain charisma that really worked with that character. Imogene Coca, I didn't really care for that performance. I think that's a big reason why I didn't like Aunt Edna. I think the theory, the concept of Aunt Edna to make this vacation from hell even more hellish is sound, but I don't think it was executed as well as it could have been. I think it probably is one of those things where Imogene Coca, she even said, "I don't play characters like this. I don't usually play mean people," and it kind of felt like that. It came across as if it was an actress who was known for playing different kind of roles with different personalities and is now outside their comfort zone and is kind of trying a little bit too hard to be a sourpuss instead of it just being a genuine sort of thing. Like think about um what's her name? I think her name is it Anne Ramsey? I think that's who it is from the Goonies and Throw Mama from the Train. Like she's just naturally able to be a just stone cold bitch. And that's something that she's really good at. And I think there are other actresses who are very good at that kind of thing. And I understand the thought process from the casting director, have somebody who's a complete opposite and she's known for being a sweet kind old lady or whatever and then have her be this mean old bitch, but I think you really could have gone a different direction and just went with somebody who was more capable and had done that before. Because I think in this kind of movie, you already have a lot of zaniness, you already have a lot of oddball sort of moments and characters. I don't think you really need Aunt Edna to be so forced when it comes to her uh, sourness. But that's just me. I know a lot of people love her performance. I'm not a fan. I never was, even as a kid. Randy Quaid, though, he almost steals the entire movie as Cousin Eddie. Uh, Randy Quaid, he's a character in real life, so it makes sense that he's playing this character that is just so out there and just such an obnoxious character, but it's the kind of character that works in small doses, especially when it comes to how Chevy reacts around Randy Quaid. John Candy, I love his character in this as Russ Lasky, the security guard at Wally World. Just such a dopey character, but so lovable. And it was one of those things where John Candy was so naturally funny as a person and as a performer that even when he's playing a character like this that doesn't really have a lot of lines of dialogue that are, laugh out loud hilarious, he could make you just crack up just by a look on his face or just by his mannerisms or just the way that he says a rather innocuous line of dialogue. Uh, miss John Candy so much. His presence in this just makes an already good film great. It really does. It's one of those things where his cameo just takes this film to a whole other level. Christy Brinkley is also just a treat, a treat to look at in this as the girl in the red Ferrari. You can see why Chevy has his eyes on her, even though he's married. And in all honesty, I actually thought Beverly was hotter. And it's crazy, right? Because Christy Brinkley's supermodel looks, all that kind of stuff. But I thought Beverly D'Angelo in this, she was every bit as pretty, every bit as beautiful. And she had a uh, certain drive about her that I found really sexy. And it was just one of those things where, yeah, I legitimately thought Beverly was hotter. And I know I'm not the only one. So that just made that those whole scenes with Clark cheating on her or trying to, put the moves on this girl in the red Ferrari, it made them even more, I would say, compelling, because it's one of those things where it's like, what are you doing, man? Like, you already have like a catch in Ellen. You don't need to ruin this. Um, and speaking of that, I want to briefly mention something about the way that John Hughes wrote a certain scene that I really liked. It's that scene at the hotel when Clark is almost about to cheat on his wife with the girl in the red Ferrari in the pool. And I like how John Hughes moves very quickly away from this drama. I like that. It keeps the film at a good pace. It also shows you that sometimes relationships can be strong enough that even in a moment like this where things get really uh, wobbly, that two people that love each other can actually strengthen their relationship with one another when there is a moment like this. And I'm not saying that I'm advocating for cheating or anything like that because of uh, that scene and how Hughes handles that moment, but I do want to say that it's refreshing because a lot of times in a film like this, they will drag that out and just make it this big thing in the third act, and then they'll finally reconcile by the end of the movie. And I'm glad that they just moved past that. I've heard critics say that they don't like the fact that it moves so fast. And I'm like, why? It's a comedy. It's not a drama. It doesn't need to focus too much on that. So I like the fact that it moves past that fairly quickly. And that's another reason why this script and this entire film, it works so well, is because it just keeps the truckster moving along. So yeah, Christy Brinkley was good. Eddie Bracken was great as Roy Wally, the owner of Wally World. Brian Doyle Murray had a fun cameo as the clerk at Camp Comfort. Um, Eugene Levy, he was definitely a lot of fun as a sleazy car salesman in the beginning. Harold Ramis, he actually voices Marty Moose, the moose that says that the the theme park is closed, and I wanted to mention that because I thought that was pretty funny. Um, but yeah, great cast, really good cast. Um, and the film also was shot well by Victor J. Kemper, especially when it comes to the establishing shots or the various different scenes when they're driving around cross country. The editing was solid by Pembroke J. Herring. The music by Ralph Burns, I'm not really a big fan of. See, the film is not what I would consider without flaws. For one, don't like the Aunt Edna scenes. Already mentioned that. There are some scenes that definitely don't work as well as others, like the inner city sequence, or some other moments like the stuff in the desert where Clark is wandering throughout the desert with his pants on his head. Those scenes felt a little too cartoonish for me. which kind of took away from the genuineness of the story that made it so engaging. It was kind of jarring when it comes to the tone, and that was really another reason why I wasn't a big fan of this score, because I felt the score was very cartoonish most of the time and just a little too zany. Like the movie's already zany enough. We don't need a zany score to couple with the film. I mean, you could just have more scenes featuring Lindsey Buckingham songs or uh, popular music at the time, like the Ramones song that was playing at one point, or yeah, Lindsey Buckingham songs like Holiday Road, which is a classic, and Dancing Across the USA. But the score, it's not very memorable for one, and it's just too goofy. I really think the score is just too zany, too goofy, and it's just one of those things where it didn't really need the film didn't need that. This is the same composer who would do something like Muppets Take Manhattan, and that fits with Muppets Take Manhattan. It's a Muppet movie, but Vacation isn't really the same kind of film as a Muppet movie, so I just didn't really feel the score was necessarily the best fit. But I still really like this film. I still love it. I really do. I still love Vacation despite some of the things that I don't like about it, because it's such a fast-paced, fun, engaging, hilarious comedy with really great iconic moments between all of these different characters. I mean, to this day, when I think of Chariots of Fire, I don't think of the movie. I think of the scene with Clark racing Rusty to Wally World in the parking lot. When I think of a picnic, a family picnic, and somebody brings sandwiches. I think of the scene where Chevy Chase is trying to be sexy with the sandwich, with the Ferrari girl, and then Ellen says the dog wet on the picnic basket. Like that's what I think of whenever I think of like a family picnic. And when I think of a family road trip, I think of this movie. I think of the family bickering and arguing with one another, and the stuff with Clark and Ellen singing and annoying the hell out of their kids, and the scene where Clark dozes off in the middle of the night, and then they just somehow wind up in the parking lot of the hotel despite driving off the road. And there's just a lot of things about this movie that are just so iconic and so memorable. And it's just a classic in every sense of the word. But anyway, thanks for watching my review of National Lampoon's Vacation. And until next time, I'll see you later. See ya.